Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here, Film Theory. We got another Local 58 one, which I haven't really been here in a while. So, yeah, that's the analog horror for Local 58. It was like the news crew for like the body doubles, I think. It's been a while since I've seen this one, so I don't know for sure. So, let's take a look at Local 58. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Here we go.
One of the scariest analog horror series on the entire internet has finally returned. Yeah, we've received a new broadcast from Local 58, and the monster we see in it is going to break this series wide open. Be careful, loyal theorists, because it's looking right at you. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that wants you to go outside and look at that big subscribe button in the sky. Isn't it beautiful? Don't you just want to click it? So, it's been a minute since we've covered a classic analog horror series here on the channel, but thankfully, a new episode of Local 58 just dropped on Halloween, so you know I had to look into it. If you don't know, Local 58 is an analog horror series created by writer and artist Chris Straub. If you're unfamiliar with Straub, you probably do know some of his other work or series that have been influenced by him, like his creepypasta Candle Cove, all about a children's show that only children could see, went mega viral back in like 2009 and was actually adapted into a season of the Sci-Fi Channel series Channel Zero. We just love to see online creators getting the success and respect they deserve. Anyway, Local 58 is all about a local broadcast channel named WCLV-TV in Mason County, West Virginia. On the surface, it just seems like a fairly typical local TV network, airing movies and documentaries and the like, but things get way creepier as you watch. Some of their shows are outright disturbing, while others seem to get hijacked or altered by some unknown force. It's classic horror stuff with really compelling ideas and scares, so much so that it's been a favorite of internet theorists for years now. Matt actually did a couple theories on it ages ago, and tons of work has been done over on the Local 58 subreddit and on websites like GameDetectives.net. Shoutouts to both of those communities, they've been invaluable resources for us. And really, they've both been necessary. Local 58 has one of the deepest mysteries of any analog horror series we've ever covered. But now, with the release of these latest videos, I believe we may have a much better idea of what's going on in this series. Yeah, by diving into a lot of the older writings from its creator and looking at the inspirations behind the new Local 58 videos, we can crack this storyline wide open. Spoiler alert, there's an alternate dimension bleeding into our own, and that could mean the end of the world. Don't you dare turn that dial, loyal theorists. We're tuning in. So I think the best thing for us to do here is catch everybody up on Local 58 since it's been a few years since we've covered it. Well, long story short, as mentioned above, Local 58 is a series about a local broadcast channel, WCLV-TV, located in Mason County, West Virginia. On the surface, it seems like your typical broadcast TV network with movies and documentaries and kids' cartoons, but things quickly turn creepy. Some content aired on Local 58 is disturbing. The station is hijacked by other messages, or programming is altered by some unknown force. Some big examples: in the video, You Are on the Fastest Available Route, we see a dash cam of a driver that's lured into the woods by a glitching GPS before encountering some sort of monster. In Show for Children, we see an animated skeleton come across several open graves with monstrous bodies inside before he himself dies. While in Contingency, we see a public service announcement instructing viewers to, unalive themselves. Some of the videos also call out phone numbers and websites leading to an ARG which built upon these creepy mysteries. But a running theme we noticed throughout the entire series was the moon. Sometimes, the moon is depicted as a creepy monster looking over the earth and ends up killing that previously described cute cartoon skeleton. In others, viewers are encouraged to look outside and up at the moon, though we hear screaming in the distance suggesting that it isn't a pleasant experience. Finally, we see that the moon seems to be some giant, living, breathing entity. There's straight up what looks like organic material inside of it, and also it looks like a giant skeletal monster. One video also called The Moon, His Throne, suggesting that this entity is living inside of the moon and using it to watch over the Earth. Matt and other theorists I've seen here around YouTube suggested that Local 58 was an alien invasion story, though Straub seemingly debunked this. That being said, there does seem to be some sort of interdimensional Lovecraftian energy going on here, which seems like it's really splitting hairs with the term alien, but hey, who am I to judge? Like I said,
I mean, technically you could call it, like, an eldritch being, which, well, considering the look up and the throne stuff, Yeah, you can definitely see that. I mean, I've seen a couple, like, or at least on, like, overly sarcastic productions, I've seen a few of the, you know, some of their stories on the eldritch beings, so you can definitely see the influence, but anywho, I got nothing else to say. Let's keep moving.
Said above, that's a super abridged version of the story we've deciphered so far, so please go watch our previous theories if you want a more thorough explanation. But the real reason we're here today is to talk about the new content. And well, since we did our last theory, there have been 2 main videos released on the Local 58 channel. So let's cover them one by one and then see where they sit in our overarching narrative. The first of these is called Close, and though it's rather lengthy, there actually isn't a ton to recap on this one. Close shows footage from a Sorrow mission, that's the Space and Aeronautics Regulatory Oversight, this universe's version of NASA, sending a probe to an asteroid named Eidolon as it passes close to Earth. This asteroid is particularly famous in universe because it vaguely resembles a skull when viewed from certain angles. A celestial body that looks like a skeleton. Doesn't that sound familiar? Also, Eidolon is a word meaning idealized person, like someone you might want to put on a throne. Just food for thought there. Regardless, most of the video is just footage from the mission and information about both the asteroid and the lander being sent towards it. However, as the probe gets closer, the footage starts getting glitchy and we see a door on the asteroid. Straight up a door, like one you'd see in your house. The video feed gets super choppy before the lander makes contact, but the door then opens, revealing organic material inside of the asteroid similar to what we've seen on the moon. Then, an unseen force throws the lander back out into space. Cut to black, cue the end of the video. Again, interesting choices made here if the creator's trying to lean away from that whole alien angle, but whatever. So, there's a lot going on here that we should talk about, but the thing that really jumped out at me first, other than the whole door on the asteroid thing, was the discussion about seeing the skull or face in the asteroid. The video tries to make it clear that this is just a scientific coincidence. It just so happens that when light hits Eidolon at the right angle, it looks like a skull. This is a real-world phenomenon known as pareidolia, which is the human instinct to see patterns where there are none. This is especially true for faces. We humans just love seeing faces in everything, from clouds to houses to fruit. But this actually goes one level deeper for us here in the context of this Local 58 video. Yeah, pareidolia in celestial objects is incredibly common. The most famous or infamous example of this is the face on Mars. If you don't know, when we first imaged the surface of Mars with probes, a region of the planet known as Cydonia exploded in pop culture because of one particular mountain that looked like a human face. Conspiracy theorists took this and immediately ran with it as proof of extraterrestrial life and intelligence on Mars. This was surely a giant statue from an ancient civilization, right? Well, not so. Further images of the location showed the same mountain with different lighting, and believe it or not, but it was just a regular mountain. The sun was just hitting the rock at the right angle, and we took the picture at the right time to make it look like a face. But all that being said, given Local 58's history of taking real conspiracy theories and using them as inspirations for its lore, that seems to be the same thing that's happening here, that this Eidolon asteroid actually is evidence of some sort of ancient Lovecraftian entity or civilization, one that made something inside of this asteroid. Really lines up well with what we've seen from the rest of the series with the whole moon entity, doesn't it? It could also...
True. Yeah, and something tells me, us looking at it, yeah, it's definitely making it up more. So I think Local 58 is accidentally empowering this being. Like, I think I remember something about Lovecraftian lore is the more you think about it, the more power it gets. Like the Call of Cthulhu. Like, the more people look into it, the more powerful it becomes. I think. I mean, I think in the story was more like, oh, hey, they're just there, or something like that. I don't know. Like, the archetypes were the ones that were like, interpreting it. In the blue cars were like, I got nothing. Or something. I think I remember, like, the more you learn about it, the more you, like, encourage the arrival of the old ones, but at least I remember it, but I don't know. Anyway.
line up with other
I'll look up
conspiracy
later.
theories about asteroids and meteorites. Particularly, the one I'm thinking about is from 2017, when the first interstellar object that we've ever detected passed through the solar system. This was an asteroid named Oumuamua, and from our best guess, this thing was, well, it was just plain weird. Like, seriously, there are entire 30-plus minute documentaries here on YouTube about this thing, but what you need to know for our purposes here today, Oumuamua came from outside of the solar system, approached the inner solar system between the Earth and the Sun, slingshotted around our star, and then left the solar system. But you know what was really weird? It got faster and faster as it left. That is not supposed to happen, and though there are some potential natural explanations, we're not exactly sure how or why it did that. Conspiracy theorists, of course, jumped on this and threw out some wild speculation. Like, maybe this thing was an alien probe that came to check in on our solar system before leaving to report back to its alien overlords. Maybe that's why it sped up as it left. It was using some sort of propellant to leave the solar system. Honestly, to me, in the real world, that science seems like a bit of a stretch. But that could have been the inspiration for something similar happening here with Eidolon and Local 58. There do seem to be some legitimate otherworldly entities on board this thing since they threw the lander off of the asteroid. So maybe this is some sort of scout keeping a watchful eye on the Earth and the rest of the solar system as the invasion continues. I mean, the skull face is even like facing towards us, looking at Earth. It just makes sense. The second video is Night Walk, a documentary in the style of an old Twilight Zone or Unsolved Mysteries episode about local urban legends. This one covers the woman in profile, a mysterious ghost story first reported in 1961 when police were investigating the murder of a student at the local Maple Grove University in Icker Falls, West Virginia. Witnesses described a woman in the university courtyard staring intently into the sky, but she faded back into the shadows and disappeared when approached. Since this point, there have been over 24 sightings in the area, and curiously, she has only ever been seen in profile. The one child who saw the woman believed that she was still watching him during their encounter, saying, quote, "The lady can see me even though I'm not up there." It's creepy stuff, and there's a good reason for that. Towards the end of the video, we suddenly cut to some found footage of a camcorder taken on November 24th, 1996. That's almost 35 years after the woman in profile's first appearance. Here, we see the woman in profile against a sunset, but if you look closely, you'll see that the back of her head looks like another face. However, as the tape goes on, a flashlight crosses the woman, and it's revealed not to be a woman at all. Instead, it's some sort of creature. Its head only looks like it's looking to the side, but in actuality, it's looking directly ahead, directly at you. We then see the text, "A predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice," flash on screen as the video ends. So, okay, that was also a lot. Where do we even start breaking this one down? Well, the first thing I wanted to call out was the use of the phrase, "A predator cannot differentiate between prey and accomplice." This is actually not the first time this text has shown up in the Local 58 series. It was found in earlier videos and in the ARG, and we believed that it was pointing towards the monster in the moon. There is clearly some sort of cult following this entity, but in the end, the entity will not be able to tell the difference between its followers and the rest of humanity, between its accomplices and its prey. So, right off the bat, that's building a connection between this woman in profile creature and the entity inside of the moon, and that isn't the only connection here. Everyone who has cited the woman in profile consistently believes that she's looking up at something, so much so that witnesses often follow her gaze upwards to see what she's looking at. As we've already talked about, in the Local 58 universe, looking up in the sky is potentially very dangerous since the moon seems to have some sort of psychological impact on anyone that stares at it. Could this creature, known as the woman in profile, be trying to trick humans into looking up into the sky at the moon? Also, though it's not directly related, one of the newspaper articles we see in the video mentions a mine collapse where many of the workers there died. We're briefly given a list of casualties, including several people named Mooney. Just an interesting factoid and yet another connection with the moon. This monster is clearly connected to all of the cults and creatures and predators associated with the moon. Oh, and also, this is a very small thing, but I think it's worth pointing out that prey and predators actually have an evolutionary distinction between them. Generally, animals that are prey have evolved to have eyes on the sides of their head, giving them a wider field of vision to spot potential threats. Conversely, predators often evolve to have eyes on the front of their head so they can better focus on their targets. Isn't it then interesting that this woman in profile seems to have evolved to make people think it's looking to the side, putting them at ease because it isn't looking at them, but in reality, it's actually staring directly at them. A predator evolved to make its prey think
Oh,
it's
boy.
not a threat. It's just a great little detail. So that's a surface level analysis of these videos,
does
but what
sound-
more can we find if we dig just a little deeper? Is there anything
Let's
else
see
in
what else
here
is
that
here.
tells us about Local 58 as a whole series, a whole universe? Well, that isn't a rhetorical question, loyal theorists, because the answer is absolutely yes. One thing that really stuck out to me was that the Night Walk episode called Mason County, the location where this entire series takes place in,
Home to what some call the most haunted cities in America.
basically, ghost stories have been a part of the culture here since the area's settlement by missionaries centuries
That old
ago.
back?
So, I wondered, is Mason County a real place? And if so, is there any real-world lore we could dig into to try to connect any dots
Probably
here?
not,
And
but we'll
boy,
see.
oh boy, loyal theorists, we hit the jackpot with this one. See, Mason County is a real place, and the real-world Mason County is actually home to one of the most famous cryptid stories in American history,
Mothman?
the Mothman.
Oh,
Between
yeah, I
November
remember
15th,
that guy.
1966 and December 15th, 1967, the residents
a
of
year.
Point Pleasant, West Virginia in Mason County reported sightings of a flying creature with glowing eyes that would become known as the Mothman. This ranged from gravediggers claiming that it flew over their heads while doing their job, to young people reporting that their car was chased by the creature, to the Mothman flying over the local Silver Bridge that spanned the Ohio River. That bridge would eventually collapse on December 15th, 1967, sadly killing 46 people. After this, sightings of the Mothman stopped in the area, though other people across the world have claimed to see the creature in more recent decades, the most notable of which was in Russia before the 1999 Moscow apartment bombings. Because of the bridge collapse and the apartment bombings, people have often associated the Mothman with omens of disaster. God, as someone with a genuine passion for cryptids and cryptozoology, I freaking love the Mothman. Anyway, the fact that the
Oh yeah, I think I actually remember. Yeah, man, I was watching like something back that day, but I know like the town that the Mothman was first sighted in, they celebrate him like big time. Though there was some say cryptid, some say like a mutated animal. Like I don't know what story is true, but yeah, that whole bridge story that is true. Some people say he was the one that either caused it or warned it. It's kind of like I'm going Pokemon here, but like Absol. Like some say he's there before a great tragedy, and it led to some people believing he caused the tragedies. Not the case. I'm guessing that's the case here. They associate the tragedies with him, when in reality he's just warning them of the disasters. You know? Anyway.
Mothman started appearing at roughly the same time as the woman in profile and in the exact same part of the United States cannot be a coincidence. That is a very specific time frame and a very specific place down to the same county. That's more than just a little inspiration and why I believe we can learn a lot about the monsters here in Local 58 from the extended Mothman legend. And that might help us crack exactly what's going on here in this series. For example, the Mothman folklore is often paired with another urban legend of a mysterious man named Indrid Cold. This was an uncanny-looking man with a freakish smile that appeared around the same time and place as the Mothman in West Virginia. The prominent belief amongst conspiracy theorists was that he was some sort of man in black, or some sort of alien or extra-dimensional being in human form. Again, that would fit with a lot of the themes present here in Local 58, of humanity being infiltrated by these otherworldly beings. So, what else can we find here in that Mothman legend? Well, one of the more popular interpretations of the
prophecies.
folklore comes from the Mothman prophecies.
infamous
This was a
Frederick
book profiling the sightings that was later adapted into a movie with the same name. This version of the creature was said to be a being from another dimension that manifested into our reality. What if something similar is going on here in Local 58? It borrows so much from this folklore already, it's not a stretch to suggest that the inspiration went that far too. And what's more, it also wouldn't be the first time that Straub has played with that idea in his writings. In one of his earlier works called The Hirsch Camera, Straub describes a mysterious camera at a museum in Acre Falls, West Virginia, which used a unique process to create color photography. On display with it are 12 pictures, including a local town square, natural environments, and a girl who isn't looking at the camera. Doesn't that sound familiar? A coincidence, I'm sure. But here's the thing. All of the pictures do not line up with historical record or other photographs of the same time. Instead, they depict buildings that never existed, trees with human hands at the ends of their branches, people crawling on all fours, or a man with a grossly distorted head. If I were to take a guess here, my interpretation of what's going on is that whatever process this inventor used to create this camera isn't taking pictures of our world. Instead, it's taking pictures of the same time and place from another world. Another dimension. What if that dimension here is what we're seeing bleed over here into the real world in Local 58? What if all of the weird happenings and the broadcasts getting hijacked and the moon looking weird and the woman in profile are all from this alternate dimension? Now, you might think that, wait, this is a completely different thing that Straub wrote. Can we really connect it to this ongoing Local 58 story? And that is fair to point out, but Straub is an author who has gone out of his way to connect all of his works before. Remember at the top of the episode when I talked about Candle Cove, that creepypasta that Straub wrote back in the day that was so popular and influential that was adapted into a Sci-Fi Channel series? Well, that creepypasta mentions that Candle Cove aired on Channel 58, and Straub has confirmed that this is the same channel as Local 58. Its official name, WCLV-TV, is even a reference to Candle Cove, so it's entirely reasonable to assume that other works like the Hirsch camera could also be connected too. And even more importantly for us, the Hirsch camera and all of its photography was created in Icker Falls, a fictional location created by Straub and one of the towns directly serviced by Local 58. All of the paranormal happenings we see here in Local 58 are because of some crossover with an alternate dimension, maybe the same one described here in the camera's story. And honestly, that would explain so much. If the entities are from another dimension, that may explain why Straub insists they aren't aliens, they're dimension hoppers. That could also explain why the woman in profile creature is able to disappear so easily. It's fading into the shadows, out of this world and back into its own dimension. It could explain why people the world over aren't freaking out all the time over the moon if it has a giant skeleton in it. Maybe you just have to be in a very specific place like Mason County, West Virginia to even see it. But if you do, it's certainly seen you too, and that could be the end of you. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut! Up next on Film Theory, there is so much more to Gooby Go.
Okay, there's gonna be more to this, but I don't know if we are, but could be just leaning to the more, but let me know what you guys think. Honestly, I could see that. He tends to have that habit, doesn't he? Just reworking those old stories into it. So, let me know what you guys think. Till next time, see ya.